Hey, welcome back to the Lead Counsel Podcast. Your host, Tom Tona. Before we jump into today's topic, I just want to take a minute to thank the sponsors of the podcast. This episode is sponsored by Tona Law. They're not just another law firm. They're defining what it means to fight for their clients. We get a lot of attorney referrals from across the country. We pay fee participation in all jurisdictions where it's permitted. We focus on integrity, innovation, and relentless advocacy. Tona Law is proving that the business of law can scale without losing its heart. If you want to see how a modern firm is built for impact and happy client referrals, check out tonalaw.com. Mention again the Lead Counsel Podcast, and I'm happy to get on the phone with you. Powerhouse attorney out in California, Swann van Dermaden.
There's this book called The Credibility Code, and I will tell you, because I read so much for my work, I don't read a lot of books. So if I'm recommending a book, you can pay attention to it. But the Credibility Code really talks about all the verbal and nonverbal things that you can do to show up as confidently. And it's not just a book; it is a very practical exercise of things that you can practice. And it's just so helpful in terms of how do you present and how you show up and how you can start thinking, but at the same time still being a vulnerable, real person to your rope team and having them there to support you. So I just think that's a key to kind of success, is you, especially as a younger person, when you are showing up and you walk into a room of giants, people that are better than you, because that's what you want to surround yourself with, is people that are better than you. They'll make you better. But how do you show up confidently in that space and at the same time be real?
Marco Brown.
I bought The Closer Survival Guide, which is the best business book I've ever read. I've read it 24 times. I have read it more often. This is terrible, but I've read it more often by a significant number than the scriptures that I believe come from my God. Let's put it that way.
Okay. That says a lot, man. That says a lot.
It really does. It's also a shorter book. But anyway, it was that transformative. And that's where I really started to learn the sales and the closing part of this that enables kind of everything else.
Ed Alexander. Ed is the author of several key books, both of which I have on my bookshelf, even though I'm not a Florida attorney. The first one is The Guide to Selling Your Florida Law Practice, and the second one is the Florida Business Contracts Handbook. So I read your book, The Guide to Selling Your Florida Law Practice. What does selling a law practice look like? What are the 4 scenarios?
So the first scenario is you die at your desk.
Oh,
Yeah.
say that again.
Terrible.
Say that again for all of those people like, I would never run my law firm like a business.
Yes, die at your desk. Right.
It happens all the time, though. I interviewed a guy,
does.
Ed, who said, I died at my desk 4 times.
Wow.
Like, man, if that's not a wake-up call to do some succession planning with people like you, I don't know what is. That's actually what got me off my ass to start doing succession planning. The thought of dying at my desk after everything I've built and my wife having to go to somebody like Ed and go, I don't know what to do, that was an unacceptable risk for me.
Number 2 is liquidate. So basically you haven't died, but you've got to close everything down. And that's kind of a nightmare too, because you got to time everything. You got to close out your cases. You got people in the office, you got to pay them out. I mean, that's a horrible process. Better than dying at your desk, but not good no matter what. And then the third is the internal sale. So that's what I talked about before, having an associate. Mm-hmm. And then the fourth is the external sale. And that's going out and finding, an outside buyer who'll come in and take over the practice.
One of my favorite books. You ever read the book Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss?
No, jotting it down.
Yeah, listen, it's a negotiation book. Probably one of my.
Yeah.
I will tell you that it has moved the needle for my clients multiple 7 figures just by studying this book. But he's an ex-FBI negotiator.
Okay.
And I will tell you, a lot of what you're talking about is reflected in the negotiation tactics that he teaches. And they're not really tricks. They're not tactics. They're really methodologies. So I used the wrong word. But so a lot of it is approaching every negotiation with curiosity, right? Don't go in with an agenda. Go in with curiosity. And curiosity allows you to free yourself of judgment and ask questions and gather information. Now that information will either lead to more of what you're looking for or less of it. But that less of it is because you're adjusting it down based on the information, right? But you have to kind of suspend judgment, right?
You have to. Yes.
You have to ask great questions. And he has you using a lot of the stuff that you're talking about, like that then gets into the hardwired biology of the brain, which is, labeling, mirroring, all of these different linguistic techniques that people tend to relate to you better when you're connecting with them in what's familiar. So Jules, what we're talking about is, mirroring, right? You repeat the last 3 words that somebody says, and they don't realize that subconsciously you're connecting with them. Because all of a sudden now you're plugging into that person's hardwired biology. Oh, you got to read it. The negotiations, it will up your game exponentially. I attended one of the guys' conferences and I walked up to him after, and for anybody that's listening to this, hopefully you're all plaintiffs, lawyers, and real estate people and business people that negotiate for a living. But I walked up to the guy after and I'm like, look, I just want to thank you. I've used your techniques repeatedly and it's resulted in an additional multiple 7 figures to my clients. And it really is hyper effective negotiations. So it started with me reading Jocko Willink's book, Extreme Ownership, and it was fantastic. He tells a story about the Marine unit or the Navy SEAL unit, the Navy SEAL unit that he was leading and how something went horribly wrong in the field. And I want to say, and I'm going from memory, so don't, if I get it wrong, I'm sorry, but something like somebody got hit with friendly fire and passed away, right? And so they do an after action report where they break down, hey, what happened here? So it never happens again, right? And he goes around the room. This is how he starts the book. He goes around the room and everybody stood up and said, this was on me. This was on me. This was on me, including him who was leading the platoon. So that's what kind of started me down that rabbit hole. And then I started to discuss it with Patrick Wilson, my coach, and how I always want to be the one to take a look at anything that's going wrong in an organization that I'm the head of. And I have to take ownership for that, right? So you own your own business, Jules, and someday you may have 40 people working for you, 100 people working for you. Anything that goes wrong is on the person at the top, right? Because they're the ones that create the system. They're the ones that create the culture. They're the ones that in the beginning, especially do the hiring and the firing and all of that stuff. So if something goes wrong, both myself and my leadership team, we have to look at why, what's going on, what's gone wrong.
When was your aha moment about the importance of accountability?
I'll tell you when.
Okay.
I remember sitting at my home office. I was on with Patrick Wilson and we were discussing Jocko Willink's book. Reading Jocko Willink's book, Extreme Ownership, was a game changer. It was a game changer because it made so much sense. It made so much sense that you got to get over this ego nonsense. And a lot of what I see with law firm owners, and I always distinguish between being a law firm owner and being a law firm leader. You can own a law firm. That doesn't mean you're a leader, right? It just doesn't. So the aha moment was listening to that book, talking about it with Patrick, and we talked about accountability and how important it is to take accountability. A lot of law firm owners, when things are great, they take all the credit. When something goes wrong, everything about the team did it. They handled it wrong. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. And that is just completely ass backwards. When we win, that's because of my team, not because of me. When something goes wrong, that's on me. Did I not have the right people in the right seat? Did I not track the right data? Did we have a system that people weren't following? Did we have a system that was antiquated? Did we not have a system for something? Right? So when stuff goes wrong, I have a tendency to ask people, can you create a system for this so it doesn't happen again? Right? There's very few things that are going to burn down an entire law firm. All right. I'm sure they're out there, but there's very few things that are going to burn down a business. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen. I'm sure there are scenarios, but if there are mistakes, good. I've let people make mistakes seeing that they were coming. Why? One, they're going to learn from that mistake. And two, they're going to create a system around it. Right? So to me, that was my aha moment. Quick break to thank the sponsors of the podcast. This episode is supported by Tona Law, a modern law firm built on integrity and innovation. Learn how they're changing the game at tonalaw.com. Attorney referrals accepted from across the country. You'll see what it's like when you send us a case. You'll have some happy clients. You ever read Dale Carnegie's book? You read that, right? I think I gave it to you, actually.
Of course, yeah.
Okay. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Still the best business book out there on how to develop business. And yet nobody does it, right? And the first rule is don't talk about yourself. Care about the other person, right? Yeah. And so I think when you address people's pain points, you become known as a problem solver. That leads to long-term customer loyalty and repeat business and referral business. So I've read now 3 books on stoicism, and they come at a time when I'm being tested mentally, emotionally, physically, and they're also coinciding with my meditation practice really being the deepest it's ever been. I'm up to a full half an hour every morning, and I am going super deep in the meditation. I'm not sure what to attribute it to other than I have been so focused on making sure I do it. This is a direct takeaway from the book, The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Very few books do I get engrossed in that I finish and consume as fast as I have the following books. The Obstacle is the Way, Ego is the Enemy, Stillness is the Key, which was one of my favorites. And then I'm now reading Discipline is Destiny. And I recommend this reading to anybody going through anything in your life. So let's talk first. Obstacle is the Way, right?
What was your initial reaction when you had first read The Obstacle is the Way?
That it was what I needed at this time in my life, right?
Okay.
Anybody that's in business will have moments of doubt and grace, right? And that's a quote from a song, I believe. I forget what the line is, but you could look it up. But your business will test you, right? It will test your resolve. It will test your belief in your vision and your mission and your team. And so when you go through stuff in your business as a business owner, you have gut check moments, right? And only in stillness will you be able to analyze all of this and deal with it properly. And you have to have emotional fortitude and control and regulation throughout the entire testing process. And if you fail, it has bigger consequences than it really needs to be. So my immediate takeaway was, oh my God, how fortuitous that at this time I'm going through my business, I find these books. The Obstacle is the Way is one of those books. It's been universally praised from celebrities like Arnold Schwarzenegger and LL Cool J, the New England Patriots, to the University of Texas men's basketball team, right? It's made its mark on athletes, on business owners, on entrepreneurs.
Do you think that it has shifted your way of thinking now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, I've always had a stoic mindset, but what I love is there are the 4 virtues that they talk about and how it's really a system for living, right? You can live and be miserable, or you can live and be pragmatic, realistic, emotionally regulated. That's really what they talk about is you can approach life in a number of ways, but the best, most effective way is what I've been calling Kelvin Zero, right? You get yourself to an unemotional state and you just analyze, well, how bad is this really, right? Is this bad, or is my perception of it such that I'm catastrophizing, right? So for me right now, it's just an amplification of the mindset that I've always had, really. The author, Holiday, he uses these teachings to shape the narrative in The Obstacle is the Way. He mentions, Marcus Aurelius, and he talks a lot about the original Stoics. And the one quote that I loved is, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way, which is what I said earlier. So ultimately, any time that I have failed, I have been willing to fail and put myself out there. And I've been better for it, despite the fact that going through it was extremely painful. I've talked about spectacular failures on this podcast before, right? Failures of outside businesses, or failure of business plans, or even belief in people that turned out to be wrong. That's a failure. But would I change the trajectory? No, because it's what led me to this point. How do you know if certain decisions you make are ultimately right if you're not willing to make those mistakes, right? And in the book, he uses historical figures and how they are actually examples of stoicism in real life. So he used an example of John D. Rockefeller, Amelia Earhart, Ulysses S. Grant, and Steve Jobs, right? And how they use stoicism or a stoic mindset to navigate difficult decisions. I've been super pumped on these books that Ryan Holiday wrote on stoicism, and he broke them out into the 4 virtues, and they have different titles. Book Stillness is the Key. There's few things that have moved the needle more for me than books in particular that are well written on topics that pertain to leadership, right? To me, leadership at its highest level is about certain characteristics and quality of mind that you have to cultivate. And so we can just jump right into the book.
Yeah, let's do it.
I had just finished Obstacle is the Way. It was talking me through this tough time. And then the next day I picked up Stillness is the Key. The whole book is based on the philosophy of, in order to effectively lead an organization, you have to be able to lead yourself. And in order to lead yourself, you have to emotionally regulate. You cannot be emotionally responsive, right? So the whole idea is to slow down time and reaction. And it's essential not only for leading effectively and living meaningfully, but the answers can only come to you if you remain still. Stillness is not wasting time. It's not inaction. It's about training your mind, right? It's about training your mind to remain calm even when the whole world is on fire and feels chaotic. Obstacle is the way. Stillness is key, which is still my favorite. Now we're going over Ego is the Enemy. These books I cannot recommend enough. There's a reason why they're on the constant bestseller list, and they're read by high performers, CEOs, you name it. And I highly recommend it. So I read Ego is the Enemy. So the book defines ego as the unhealthy belief in your own importance. And I can draw my own experience working with, and again, I'm 56, working with 20 somethings and 30 somethings. And one of the biggest issues is either mindset, and very often the mindset issues are related to ego, right? So ego can distort reality. It can definitely inflate someone's sense of self-importance, and it can lead to arrogance and really bad decision making. And ego disrupts every aspect of life. When you're ego driven, first of all, you can see it from a mile away. So if you're not ego driven and you're really analytical and you know people, you know if you're dealing with somebody who's ego driven. And most of the times that's your leverage point. If you're in a negotiation, if you're in a litigation, so ego disrupts every facet. If you let your ego win, it disrupts every facet of life. So one, it's disruptive in terms of learning, right? You go into something, you think you know everything. Well, I've been in some rooms with really smart people and we all say the same thing. What I don't know could fill volumes. Teach me. Let me learn, right? So ego blocks curiosity and the ability to embrace learning, and particularly learning from mistakes or mentors. So humility and admitting that you might have knowledge, but you don't know everything. That's what leads to success. That's what leads to people opening doors for you, opening your mind up. So yeah, ego disrupts learning. Ego really disrupts relationships. To me, ego is directly contrasted and counteracts humility. And I think humility is essential for growth and long-term success. I define, and many people define, a professional as somebody who's a lifelong learner. And if you're ego driven, you don't think you need to learn anything. You think you know it all. You've got it all dialed in. So to me, humility is the antidote for ego, right? But a lot of times it takes getting kicked in the head. It's coming. It's going to happen to everybody. It's just a matter of when. And that humbles you. And sometimes that's why you need it. By the way, in a leadership realm, if you're ego driven, like some of the bad law office owners we've talked about, who throws laptops, who curses at people, who screams at people, people might stay because they're afraid. People might stay because you pay them well, but they're not going to follow you. And the first opportunity they get to flee, they will. So to me, staying humble is the key. That humility will always serve you, especially if you're self-aware and you're mindful and you listen. Because humility allows you to seek out constructive criticism and embracing failures as part of the process and learning experiences, versus if you have such a full belief in yourself, founded or unfounded, and your first failure, you're going to crawl up in a ball and cry in the corner. If you're not ready to fail in some measure or lose money in some measure, Jules, you won't be able to succeed. You won't be able to succeed. You will have your largest client leave you at some point. It happens to everybody. Thank you for listening to this episode of Lead Counsel Podcast. Your host, Tom Tona. Go anywhere podcasts are distributed. Follow us. Leave us a 10-star review. Share some episodes with your friends. And thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Thank you. This episode is sponsored by Tona Law. They're not just another law firm. They're defining what it means to fight for their clients. We get a lot of attorney referrals from across the country. We pay fee participation in all jurisdictions where it's permitted. We focus on integrity, innovation, and relentless advocacy. Tona Law is proving that the business of law can scale without losing its heart. If you want to see how a modern firm is built for impact and happy client referrals, check out tonalaw.com. Mention again the Lead Counsel Podcast, and I'm happy to get on the phone with you.